What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Beefy Boys Breakdown. We're going to be recapping UFC Fight Night, Dvalishvili versus Yan. And as always, we start with the prelims. One of the only shows out there going over every single fight on every single card. That's why you should hit that subscribe button and check out our other videos. But,
Yes,
man,
sir.
I really enjoyed this card as a whole. The fact any fight night that's not in the Apex automatically gets like a little bit of bonus points. Just overall vibe, feel, like level of importance. Like I feel like obviously Apex served its purpose during the pandemic, and it was dope. It allowed us to have sports. It's honestly what allowed this podcast to be birthed. If you think about it, is like the Apex and the Apex era. It's kind of like when this podcast came to be. So I'm thankful for it. I don't hate it as much as like guys like Ariel, and like I do think it is important to have fight night cards where people that can headline it without having to worry about selling tickets. Like it really helps build these prospects and get them to that next level and get 5-round experience. So like I do think there's a time and a place for Apex cards, but on the flip side, talk out of both sides of my neck here, the ones that aren't at the Apex are pretty dope.
I would 100% agree with that. At first, I thought it was at the Apex. I didn't realize it was at the Virgin Mobile Theater or whatever that place is called.
Yeah,
now,
small, like little venue.
Yeah, and they were saying that like it felt as intimate as the Apex, which to me was extremely interesting because like that is kind of a one-off in sports, right? To have an arena that's that like small, that's not really catered to fans, but is actually catered to the performance of the event. You know what I mean? Like how many sports sell out their sport without really worrying about selling out the gate?
It'd be like watching an NBA game at like a
The
small
bubble,
college,
like
or
the
something.
bubble.
Yeah,
They're in the bubble. Like it's the same thing. It feels
but
weird.
nobody could go to that.
It's what I'm saying. Like the Apex is still maybe
Yeah.
1,000 fans at most, but like kind of similar deal there. It's just weird seeing these other events because they're in such big arenas, and so is the UFC. But like I don't know, that intimate feel in a fight is just different.
When apparently it was dope for the fans too. I was seeing somewhere on Twitter somebody's talking about you can get tickets for under $200. That would have been fucking sweet.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
I
crazy
should have
because the
fucking
Apex,
gone, dude.
the Apex
Like,
prices are
seriously.
expensive.
Yeah, because it's like it's not even a ticket; it's a VIP package.
Exactly.
I guess you get more of it.
Well, I think you get to
like,
go to like the UFC, like they have like a little bar there. So like I think everyone, unless it's like the UFC personnel, like they have their own back room. But like everyone intermingles. Like when you get a ticket or like a pass, like everyone is the same level of like, you know what I'm saying? There's not like these 5 different levels.
and there's other shit included. I'm pretty sure there's some level of a meet and greet or some level of some.
I think you get to
it's a
go
whole
watch.
deal.
I think you can go like watch backstage interviews, like stuff like that.
Yeah, so I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, I really enjoyed it not being at the Apex. Jerking the curtain here, we got Carlston Harris taking on Jared Gooden, and this fight was like, I don't know, like Carlston Harris. I actually kind of like Carlston Harris. Now, like where he fits into the welterweight division is tough just because the division's so stacked. But I mean, I don't mind watching Carlston Harris fight. Now, can't say the same for Jared Gooden, man. I'm never stoked for a Jared Gooden fight. It's always
he just puts on snoozers, right? Like, am I crazy for saying that? Like, and it's not snoozers like it's the snooziest fight. It's like it feels like it's always a decision, and it's always some like I don't know, like long dragged out process that just could have like, can we just get him out? You know what I mean? Like he's clearly going to lose the fight every time. He never puts on like a convincing argument for him to win.
It's just the skill set, right? Like as the guy who every once in a while I'll watch a Game Bred FC or an Eagle FC or some of these smaller promotions. I've seen my fair share of like low level combat sports, and like Jared Gooden's a guy you can find like at any as Chael would say, any local dog park. Like just, I mean, tough guy, athletic guy, but the skill set, like it literally like usually we say like jumps off the screen in a positive light, but like you're just watching this and you're like, this just clearly.
So
you're watching an NBA game and like the 15th guy on the bench is in the game, like you can tell, like visually, or like whenever like in baseball and spring call-ups, like the guy that's been in AAA, you can tell he's just like a little level below, and you can just tell if you as you know your educated sports fan eye can just spot the difference. NFL preseason game, right? Like okay, he has the right jersey on, but this looks different.
Oh, dude,
like,
NBA when they rest starters and they play like they're like 10th or 11th or 12th benchman, or they call up a guy from the G League and he gets on the floor and you're like, oh, this dude just doesn't play the game the same way.
Yes, and that's how I feel when I'm watching Jared Gooden. Like he almost takes the relevance away from the fight just by being in it. And I know we're being tough. Also, guy weighed in at 177 for a welterweight match. So if you're looking for like sympathy or pats on the back, it ain't gonna come from me.
No, I mean he literally
No,
pulled some Rumble Johnson shit, and like shout out to Carlson Harris for even accepting the fight after that big of a weight miss.
yeah, and like the weight miss was so big that Vegas wouldn't let you place bets on it, or at least the casino I was at. Like it wasn't available to bet on because like I don't know if
I
it's
don't think it was
because they weren't
confirmed
confident.
that it was going to take place.
Yeah, for sure. Round one, all that shit talk being said, Carson Harrison minus 300, Jared Gooden plus 250, and round one was kind of entertaining, but it was only entertaining because Jared Gooden literally has the worst striking defense in the whole UFC. Like,
Bro, he keeps his hands down.
It's like Bobby Green without head movement. Like imagine Bobby Green with the head on the center line, and that's like hands down, but no head movement, no slips, no rolls. It's weird. There's literally no defense.
You know what
I kind
another
of don't.
you know what another weird thing I noticed about this was that like as far as strike numbers, he had great strike numbers, but they were all just like the most like pitter patter like bullshit punches, and like another guy that won on strike numbers in this card, but I like never would have thought those numbers were amassed was Victor Henry. Like he was doing the
Yeah,
same thing of kind of those just little small combination like 6-7 off punches, and I guess that is a shot against Carlson Harris to not. I mean, he was firing back. He was landing big. Gooden would just like dumbly continue combos. I think the striking numbers here lie to you. Is all I'm getting at.
yeah, for sure. And I wasn't factoring them in at all. We kind of don't have to go round by round here. I mean, it was pretty much all Harris. I mean, it was Harris on the feet. It was Harris on the ground. I think in the second round, Harris started to realize that, like, okay,
The
I
wrestling,
can
he's just
outstrike this guy, but yes, if I wrestle this guy, get top position, he's not going anywhere. He has no bottom game. He doesn't have the Holly.
just gonna force
Hey,
him just gonna force him to give up. Pretty much is essentially like Harris's approach, and that was the right move, I think.
I gotta ask, did you score round three at 10-8? Because I did not. But as I was writing my notes, I felt like I was like building the case for a 10-8.
I
Like
didn't either.
I went 10-9.
But so the first and third were very similar to me in but in different ways, right? So like the control of the third was literally like 4 minutes 40 seconds. Harris, like it was dominance and duration. I just don't know that it was damage, although there was good damage. Like I could build.
That's what I'm saying.
I could build my
That's what I'm
case for a
saying.
10-8 here, but I think I could in the first two with the amount of damage he was getting on Gooden.
I thought in round one, Gooden was doing enough back. He was firing back.
See, that's
like
what I said too. Is that he landed enough big shots back to stay up. The third,
round three, he did not. Like round three, he didn't do shit. And like I said, I don't know. I'm kind of disagreeing with myself. I gave it a 10-9 for the record. But like I said, as I was writing my notes as to why I gave it a 10-9, I was like, this kind of sounds like the notes for a 10-8. Yeah, like 4 minutes of control. He took the back and full mount, so it wasn't just like he was advancing position on the ground. He was dropping some fairly significant elbows, especially like towards the end, and he was lumping him up. Listen, I mean, maybe like an 8.9 if we're going verdict.
yeah, right.
Like, but not to get too lost in the weeds here. I mean, all three judges scored at 30-27, so I think we're right in not giving it a 10-8, but kind of borderline, dominant 10-9.
I had
The duration.
30-27. I had 30-27 as well, but if you're loose with 10-8s, like you could have an argument for this almost being 30-25. Like you could almost say that the first and third were dominated.
Yeah, and definitely 30-26 is probably on the table. Now, I mean, in the end, it doesn't really matter. No, Carson Harris, I think, kind of does matter. Like he's what 4-1 in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken, and that only else to Shavkat.
Yeah, which
So
like
A, he's a dog for taking that fight, and B, like you're not going to hold it against him. Now, do I think he's like elite? No, but I mean, he's clearly not a can, and he's clearly like, I mean, just lining him up and knocking him down all intents and purposes. Like,
I mean,
I don't want to get into matchmaking here because he's the first fight on the prelims. Kind of doesn't matter. Kind of tells you how the UFC views him. But that being said, like I think he's like better than like he's thought of as being. Like he's better. He skill set, his relevance, and his like brand.
I mean, he has a first round sub and a first round KO. The KO's over Kasanganai and the sub's over Aguilera. He obviously has that first round KO loss to Rachmanov, but like, hey, who doesn't? Minus fucking Jeff Neal and Neil Magny, but they both still got finished. Like, it wasn't like they made it to the scorecard anyway. The dude's a killer. And then he has his win over Jared Gooden decision, dominant decision. I like Carlston Harris. I'm not saying he should fight anyone ranked, but I think he's a guy that's like, he's good to have from that 25 to 15 range. Like, I think he's making his case to be there.
Exactly. He gets one or two more wins, or if his next win's like a first round finish or something, I mean, there's only, you're going to have to give him somebody.
Like, he's getting close to fighting like Kevin Holland, like those kinds of guys.
Sure, bro. I feel it. But we can keep it pushing here. There's 7 fights on the prelims here, so we're going to try to keep the pace a little bit brisk here. Up next, we got some flyweights. We got Tyson Nam, plus 155, ranked 15 in the division, taking on Bruno Silva, minus 180. We both like Nam coming into this one. He had the reach advantage, he had the power advantage. And quite frankly, I think part of our equation, we got, if we're being honest with ourselves, is we didn't know a ton about Bruno Silva. And there's also like 90 guys named Bruno Silva on the roster. So
that was the other thing I was going to say is like, how many Bruno Silvas have we seen fight? Like probably 5 or 6. It's like the John Smith of Brazil. But also what I was going to say is that we did bet pretty much every fight on the card here just to do an straights experiment. So we have all straight bets. Some are a little more specific, so like by KO, by decision, but are still a straight bet on the fight. The first fight we did call, just to give us a little shout out. We did like Carlston Harris on that. Not the biggest, hardest call, obviously, with the odds, but here we did take our first dog of the night, Tyson Nam. We liked Nam's striking, his speed, his power. Didn't really know much about John Smith of Brazil over there, Bruno Silva. And so, leading into the breakdown, like you said, Silva was the favorite, but it was a close money line. Now, that being said, Silva kind of started to show me why I was wrong through that first round. I mean, good spinning back fist to start. His movement was insane. Nam was walking him down, but getting punished for walking him down because he could never get him trapped.
Oh, it sounded like we leaned different ways on this one. You gave round 1 to Silva, 10-9?
It did, yeah.
Now, I did have my notes that it was very close round, and I can totally see where you're coming from, and I don't really disagree with anything you're saying. I leaned Nam by ever so slightly. You're right. He was putting the pressure on. He was controlling the octagon. I did think he did land the harder punches. Like, I do. That's kind of subjective, up in the air. I thought he landed the more impactful strikes. And, like, I did have it pretty much like neck and neck coin flip. And then that last little barrage at the very end of the first round kind of tilted it in Nam's favor for me. Like, just how I was viewing it. Like I said, I had it pretty much a coin flip, and then Nam ended the round really strong. So I went Nam. Like I said, I don't hate what you said, or I don't even hate. It was a very close round, and I think we illustrated that it could have gone either way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Nam was just eating too many to get off his 1s or 2s. And granted, that seemed to be the style both guys wanted to be in, right? Like, neither guy was mad. Like, Nam wanted to be walking forward and trying to chase him down and land big shots. And Silva seemed to be the guy that was like, cool, I'm just going to move back and counter-strike. And I thought he just, if it was 2-1 in striking, I thought that maybe the damage was probably close. But I just leaned to Silva just for the overall. Like, I felt like, even though he's counter-striking almost like Izzy does a lot, like he was controlling the round.
Fair enough, man. And really round 2 is going to pretty much prove you're right. Because round 2, it was like you said, it was kind of more the same stylistic wise, but just Silva just started to like land a little cleaner, have a little bit more success,
and that front
really
kick
start to pile it on.
gnarly.
Yes, that's what I was gonna get to. I mean, Michael Chandler-esque, right? Chandler
It looked
Ferguson,
just like it. Just Nam ate it back.
Nam's chin incredible, especially at 39 years old, been in a lot of wars. So he ate the front kick. Kind of doesn't matter because he like gets knocked down and then proceeds to get choked out. So
right, unconscious. A lot of guys going out and not tapping last night.
It was the go out on your shield event for sure. And yeah, I mean, respect to both guys. I mean, I thought Nam, he was aggressive. He was, in the fight. He performed relatively well. Just that front kick, I mean, that thing would have put down a horse, as they say, and fucking, he got choked out. It was a hell of an impressive. I'm going like dauber up on Silva, not necessarily dauber down on Nam. Like, I thought to land that front kick on a vet like Nam and to then proceed to get the submission finish was just very impressive.
He's young
Silva
too.
does get, yeah, super young. I mean, exciting prospect. Flyweight's heating up, bro. What happened to women's flyweight is starting to happen to men's flyweight. I also,
Right.
speaking of men's flyweight, while it's on my mind, Albazi Cara France just got announced. That's a heater.
Yeah, that's
And like a
perfect because
very relevant.
that's pretty much who gets the next title shot after. Oh God, Pantoja.
I agree. And Pantoja is kind of the last of the like previous. I don't know if you want to say generation, but
The
like the last
challengers, like
group
the
of,
old guard of
yeah,
challengers.
exactly. And then these new prospects are becoming challengers. I love it. I think what's happening in men's flyweight is very exciting, and I'm excited for it.
Well, it's cool that
So yeah,
Figueiredo
great.
left too. He doesn't have to fight back downward in that division. So like you don't have that
Yeah,
test of even Figueiredo because like he's gonna be tough for a lot of guys, but more so because like damn he cuts a lot of weight. Like he's just physically huge. Not having a guy like that and letting like the technique show out at 125 is gonna be a lot cooler.
yeah. No, I agree. And like the different matchmaking, and yeah, and like I said, Bruno Silva, he trains with Cejudo, so he's getting top end coaching, top end training partners, top end facilities. I imagine he's a prospect to watch in the flyweight division. I mean, flyweight, I feel like it's a little bit of a top heavy division, unlike bantamweight. Like
Yes, for sure.
it's
For
so
sure it
to
is.
have like an unranked young up and comer. I mean, I'm here for it, man. I mean, good on you, Bruno Silva.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at guys like Makayev, they flew through the rankings because it's just
Yes.
so sparse at the back. But yeah, like you're saying, man, if we can get 20 deep in good fighters at men's flyweight, that's gonna be a big deal.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun for sure, and we'll keep it pushing. One of the best nicknames in all of MMA, the Queen of Violence, up next. Ariane Lipsky, plus 295 dog. JJ Aldrich, minus 360, taking place at women's flyweight. And we took Aldrich in this one. Lipsky is one of those just wildly inconsistent fighters. Like, because early in her career, in her UFC career, she had me convinced, she had me sold. I was on her nuts. And like, because whenever she finishes people, I mean,
It's
she looks like
brutal.
a world beater. And it's brutal, and it's usually early in the fight. And it's like, but then she laid a couple eggs. So it's like, what do you do with that? You know what I mean? She was kind of trending downward. Vegas agreed with us that she was trending downward. But we all knew that, like, somewhere in there, like when she figures it out and gets it right, I mean, it looks really well and it translates really well to in the cage. And then Aldridge is kind of the opposite. Just kind of very steady as she goes. Only loss being to Blanchfield. Essentially,
and like
JJ
who
Aldridge is
hasn't?
the female Carlston Harris.
It's a similar feeling, yeah, for sure. Except the UFC, I feel like tries to sell me JJ Aldrich as striking and has from the start. Like this girl can strike. Like they've never billed her as a wrestler.
That's the only thing I like about her is her wrestling.
Me too. When we broke down
Whenever
this
the Brock,
fight, we said that we thought she'd be able to get the fight to the ground and win in a ground battle of control.
which is interesting because Lipsky's a very good grappler, but does accept that bottom position. So we thought that Aldridge would pretty much be able to ride it out, avoid the sub, and we thought it would probably be a decision. But yeah, and then you're right. The broadcast starts talking about how good Aldridge striking is, and I made the same face I just made to you. Like, what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
I was like, who's strike? Lipsky's striking is good, right? That's what you mean to say, right? Nope.
yeah, and that would essentially be some foreshadowing because essentially the first 10 minutes of this fight take place on the feet, and it's not from lack of trying from Aldridge.
Yeah,
Lipsky was
she
stuffing
landed
those
zero. She
takedowns
landed zero takedowns. I'm pretty sure in the whole fight.
and attempted a lot.
Yeah, I think
And
14. I think she was 0-14.
Lipsky was stuffing them. And then in the third round, she started like getting reversals in her own takedowns and ends up on top of Aldridge. But the first 10 minutes, it's a kickboxing match, which I said, even if Lipsky was going to win, we probably figured it would be by sub, not just by like turning into style bender out there.
Even crazier, if that first round is 6 minutes or 5 minutes 30 seconds instead of 5 minutes, I think she might finish Aldridge because she tagged her so hard at the end of the first.
Then Lipsky, I mean, like I said, thought of as a grappler, I mean, looked like a high level striker because I mean, it wasn't like she was just throwing volume
No, she
or
was counter striking.
landing ball. That's what I'm saying. It was like timing. It was precision. It was
And
like
she
high
could go
level
when she
shit.
wanted, or she could counter. It was like it was getting really bad for Aldridge toward the third, where it was like, oh, you don't have a shot. Like whether you wait or whether you go, you're fucked.
I for sure. And it'd be the thing where like even when Aldridge would land, she would land second, and Lipsky would be first and third, as they say. and it was. I mean, my jaw was pretty much on the ground. I went as far as to saying in my little betting video that like, if I wanted to be boring, then Aldridge is probably the lock of the week. And listen, Vegas pretty much agreed with us outside of
I think for
Bautista.
parlays, I think she was one of the most placed parlays on this whole card as far as like percentage bets and parlays.
I had her on
and
a
it made
parlay,
sense.
so.
I mean, the minus 360 here with the dynamic fight breakdown that we had based on their fights before, it kind of made sense, man. Now, the way this fight played out was obviously Lipski has been in the lab working on her striking, has found her timing, and maybe Aldrich isn't all that shit that the people talk about.
No, for sure. Yeah, man. I mean, good on Lipski because, like, I want to like Lipski. Like, I started off a pretty big Lipski fan,
and I don't want to like Aldrich.
Me a couple of times. Yeah, and so it's like I'm not really, our bets aside, I'm not really mad at like what took place as far as like the trajectory of the division and all that. Lipski, she's a good, really good athlete. Like I said, I don't know if it's a mental thing. Like, I don't know if mentally she doesn't show up, and in those past fights, maybe she had a bad weight cut, or maybe there's something going on in her personal life. But like the skill set, I'm reconvinced the skill set's, I mean, as good as it needs to be. It's just like, will she show up and will she perform?
She might be one of those fighters that is a mental game, man. Like the days she feels good and wants to fight, she's a world beater, and the days she isn't feeling it, she's just another girl.
I agree, which probably means like stay away from betting Lipski fights in the future because like even for her or against her.
We need a producer to make a note of that to put on the wall. Like watch the Lipski bets, read her like either emotionally throughout the week. Like,
yeah, for sure, man. But we'll keep it pushing, man. To the first of many men's bantamweight fights on the card. So many bantamweights, kind of a bantamweight showcase, which is cool because the division's so deep that like. You got to churn through that mud. You got the waters are too muddy at bantamweight. You got to bang these fights out just to get even any semblance of to know where these guys like rank against each other. As far as like the back end unranked guys, there's so many. They're all so good. How do you even juxtapose them? Well, you got to fucking put like 4 or 5 bantamweight fights on every card to churn through this.
That's actually what I was going to say is, man, if you think about it, we actually get 5 bantamweight fights out of the next 10. Half.
Wow.
Half of our fights are going to take place in bantamweight. So this will be the bantamweight breakdown for everyone at home. And if you're mad about
the moment we've been waiting for.
And if you're mad about that, you're an idiot because this is the best division. Shout out to Ariel, who has recently been converted to the bantamweights. By recently, I mean like 6-8 months ago because we've been on it for 2 years.
Was it Bisping and DC, or who was the broadcast? I forget.
No, it was DC and Felder, and they made
that's right.
And Fitzgerald.
Felder came out,
and they made note of how this is like quickly becoming their favorite division in the UFC.
Like, where have you guys been? Like,
have you been watching for the last year and a half? Like, it's been
awesome.
Gas.
for sure, bro. And I think because we do enjoy prospects and like the rise process so much that this is the perfect. Division for guys like us. Certain people like the established vets and the old names and the old guard. We kind of like the chaos, the churning, the overturn of divisions from vets to prospects. So I think that's what like lends us to kind of be ahead of the curve there. But up in this first bantamweight fight of the night, we got Tony Gravely taking on Victor Henry. Gravely, very small dog at plus 125. Henry, minus 145. And we like the dog here in Gravely. Neither one of us are big Henry guys, and we thought Gravely would be a tough test for him, as did Vegas. I mean, at plus 125, Vegas is just saying, like, Gravely very well could win this thing. And, I mean, it was a competitive fight. I thought rounds 1 and 3 were very, very competitive. The argument to be made for probably either guy in both of those rounds. I thought round 2 was the only round with a clear winner.
Yeah, round 2 was the only clear round. I thought 1 had a slight lean, and I thought 3 was more of a toss-up.
For sure, man. Round 1 I gave to Henry. Like I said, it's very close, but I thought those kicks were very impressive, the body kicks. Just the overall activity and pressure. He just seemed to be the busier guy, just putting more work out there. Gravely did have some success as well, but I went round 1, 10-9 Henry by a small margin.
So I'm glad that you had the small margin because I actually had the round being very back and forth. I thought the takedown at the very end of the round and the control for that last minute was, while I had Henry slightly ahead in damage in the first 4 minutes, that minute of control, granted only probably like 5 or 6 ground and pound shots there, so not really any damage to be added. I thought it was just enough, and the visual was just enough to give Gravely the round for me. So I had it 10-9 Gravely. Very close round.
Okay, wow, yeah, for sure. And then round 2.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was an idiot and left one of my AirPods was not on the charger, so that one died already. Awesome, off to a great start here, but hopefully you can still hear me okay. Apologize to everybody if the audio got worse, but round 2, I thought round 2 had the most. Round 2 had the clearest winner. I thought round 2 was the best round of the fight for Henry. The damage was a pretty wide margin, more body kicks, and honestly, just an insane pace. Like,
yeah, I mean,
that's going to start to be the hallmark of the bantamweight division. Is like every bantamweight has to be Colby Covington. Essentially, that's what we're learning.
He was credited with 65 strikes landed in the second round, and Gravely still got off 23 of his own. So, like, it wasn't like Gravely wasn't fighting back. It was just he couldn't keep up with the pace. He could not match the pace. He was literally getting, like, redlined in the second round, which I kind of thought was like, oh, Henry's going to walk away with the third, if not finish him.
Getting, like, lapped as far as like, productivity. And it was one of those things where Henry had such a good round that I, like, kicked the can around on going 10-8, but there was no, like, definitive moment. There was no knockdown.
Gravely consistently fought back enough.
Crazy head kick. I don't even think he really wobbled him at any point. Credit to Gravely's chin because he was eating a lot of shots. And then also, like, Gravely got, I think, 1 or maybe even 2 takedowns.
I think he got 2
with him.
But yeah, one was like a 5-second takedown. The other one was like a 25-second takedown. So it's
enough to keep it from 10-8.
Yes, right. Like just enough to keep the 10-8 beasts away from him, which is important here in this fight, especially for me.
Yeah, like we're disagreeing. Like this is a hard fight to score.
Because you have it 2018, I have it 1919. Now the third round, like I said, fully expected Henry to be able to keep that pace since he was redlining it so hard for all 5 minutes in the second round. He slightly dropped off, and somehow Gravely like found a second wind and made it a very competitive round. Like I thought the third was extremely close. Henry did get that knee bar almost, but the almost isn't really worth shit when he's getting damaged so much. Like he was eating big shots while trying to hold that submission.
And Gravely matched him because he was pretty close in that arm triangle. Round 3 was a lot of fun. Well, each guy had a lot of success. I thought Gravely was able to win the damage battle.
Me too.
And I think more so from it. I thought instead of a second win for Henry, it was like Henry. The output had been so much in round 2 and round 1 that I think he did slow down a little. It wasn't like he was gassed. It wasn't like he completely fell off, but it wasn't the same output that we saw in 1 and 2, which allowed Gravely just a chance to get some of his own offense off. Because in round 2, I mean, there wasn't like a pause, like a breath, like a beat for him to even get his offense off. And he took advantage of it. I thought he landed the more damaging shots. He had that arm triangle attempt that got pretty close, which he got to that position by getting a takedown. I thought the striking, like Henry was matching the volume. Like I don't know what the numbers are, but eye test, the numbers seem to be pretty close. I just thought his shots weren't landing with the same amount of impact as Gravely's shots. And you're right, the knee bar attempt was close, kind of close, but no cigar. And even after the fight, he said it wasn't that close. He said
right,
Gravely
like Gravely never was like grimacing or looked like he was worried. Like he was like socking out his ribs, like punishing him for trying it.
For sure, man. And we end up with a split decision here. One judge goes
30-27
Henry, which I think is a little out of line. I don't love that scorecard.
It's a little crazy, but I see how you get there.
Did you went round 3 Gravely, I assume,
yeah,
right?
So I had the Gravely card, which is 29-28, which Rick Winter also had. Eric Cologne had that 30-27. You had it 29-28 Henry, it sounds like?
Which
is Sal Diamato's card.
Yep. And then, so we end up getting a Victor Henry split decision here. And
tough for my bet when I scored it Gravely and saw it for Gravely. Now, as a fight as a whole, I have no problem. No guy gets robbed here. This is a crazy close fight.
close fight, and I think Victor Henry's like output and like level of work that he put out there to be judged. I think there's something to be said for that.
I think Gravely attempting
Like
17 takedowns is kind of something, though, right?
yeah, but he wasn't getting a lot of them.
He got 4 of
But
them, but yeah.
not the best ratio. Henry, man, it's just tough because if Henry was 26, I could make myself excited for him, but he's 36. So it's just like, what do you do with a 36-year-old prospect?
Well, and it
Like,
was
you
a
can say that's not
struggle to
fair.
get over Gravely, which we've seen other bantamweight prospects like kind of bound over him.
So it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't really feel differently about either of these guys after this fight. You could say I'm a hater if you want to, but I just squeaking by Tony Gravely at 36 and being, I guess he's 2-1 in the UFC now. It's just, I don't know, man. I'm not necessarily on board for either guy.
And like
as
that,
far as hype trains go.
A Sun Sao loss is not gonna like
Age
it
well.
can't age well because the Sun Sao's so old either way. Like he's out of title contention, he's out of even ranked fights. So it's like, who does the Sun Sao even fight post this? Like obviously Davey Grant, but it's like he fights 2 more times after that. Who does he fight? And is it anyone that's worth anything? Like it's not going to improve your record to have that name on your win list now.
No, for sure, man. And then Henry gets the win. Neither of us are that hyped on him. We'll keep it pushing because we actually got some young prospects up next. We got a Cedriques Dumas minus 225, 7-0 prospect coming off the Contender Series, taking on the 6'4" Josh Fremd plus 190 underdog in the middleweight division. It was interesting. We both liked Dumas. I think we both liked him by KO. I don't think I think Dumas 6 of his 7 wins were by like first round knockout, if I'm not mistaken. And Fremd has been shown the ability to get his chin touched a little bit. I gotta say, seeing these guys stand next to each other,
the funniest visual of all time, dude. Such a funny visual.
Fremd is a big middleweight, and Cedriques,
he's like that.
Cedriques is like a Kevin Holland build.
Yeah, he's that thin, long build.
And it's like, okay, you're thin and long, but you're fighting a guy who's
like stacked out
and not thin.
Yeah,
like, yeah,
right.
Yeah,
like, he's thick and long. You're thin and long. Like, how's that gonna work?
Yeah, so it's like when you saw these guys on paper, their resumes and everything, you're like, oh yeah, pound Cedriques, which Vegas agreed with this -2. I think it was up to -240 at one point, and it finishes at -225. But when you saw these guys, and I saw people on Twitter that were right there with us that bet Cedriques, but I was like, fuck. As soon as I saw these guys stand next to each other, I was kind of second guessing myself. Because size isn't everything, but
it matters.
Cedriques, it's not like he's a technique wizard, right? Like he goes out there and kind of out athletes guys.
Boy, wasn't that clear in this fight.
And so usually the smaller man beats the bigger man due to technique. And you're telling me a guy is known for power and speed and not so much technique, and he's supposed to and he usually has a reach advantage, and he's taking on a guy that's taller than him and bigger than him and probably has better technique than him. I don't know, man. It's hindsight 2020 for sure. We both bet Cedriques, but this is something we got to look out for shit like that in the future because size isn't everything. But whenever a guy is kind of a power striker, size kind of matters a little more, especially if you're not like a jiu-jitsu ace, or you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, bro. Speaking of his power, I saw like the most fucked up post, but like with the funniest response. That was like, I guess Dumas has like charges for domestic like assault in his past, where he like at a bar beat up some chick, and like that's never good, and like beat her up bad.
The old Joe Mixon special.
Like no, like beat her up like bad. Like they've like the girl posted a picture and was like, UFC, please cut this guy, like this is what he did to me. Like P.S. He hits like a bitch. And then like bro, like she was like fucked up. And someone in the comments was just like, I don't think you can look like that and say he hits like a bitch though, unfortunately.
Hey, the guy knows how to touch a chin. And I mean honestly when the fight started, goddamn, I mean, he was touching Fremd's chin. Like, honestly, it looked exactly how I wanted it to look. As Cedriques better, I was like, oh, he's touching the chin early and often. And, like, he was getting big reactions when he would touch the chin. Like, Fremd essentially got, like,
his range,
every
right?
time he
like, was keeping it at that distance range, where he needed to be. Because when he got in that close range, like dirty boxing, that was where Fremd was going to find all of his success.
But I got to say, man, Like, and it's real easy to say this about a guy with like face tattoos and shit, but like seriously, like he looks like he's in a street fight.
Yeah, I
Like
know.
it's
I
not
thought
like
that the
the
whole
footwork.
time. Like the technique was so bad. Like he was obviously an explosive athlete, but just had no control of himself.
Apparently, he's in some small gym. Like if that guy got to a legit coach, like if that guy trained with a Cejudo or I mean any Trevor Whitman, like anybody like a high IQ guy. I mean, the talent and the potential is there, but I mean, he literally was out there like fighting 10-piece from Buffalo Wild Wings. Like
He was
he was
winging wild shots, like not really throwing any kicks to establish and keep his distance. Like it was all
no,
just kind
and
of like
like
rookie
falling
striking,
off balance with his
like
strikes, like
over
not keeping
striking.
his feet under him.
Like clearly
Yeah,
he
it
has
was like,
power because he puts his whole body into shots, like, and you can't do that. Like real power, you don't put your whole body into it.
and that being said, I mean, as much as he was kind of landing on Fremd and hurting Fremd ended up actually having the biggest land of the whole
It
round and started
dropped him
hurting
hard.
Cedriquez.
And then was able to keep it like a close, like grappling match where he was just kind of in tight, wrestling him against the fence, landing shots to the body. I mean, it became the entire first round was something that was like Cedric's nightmare, right? Like he does not want to be in this like close, like grappling heavy kind of a war and having already been tagged with like a crazy big shot once. Like that's
Well, I was about
nightmare
to
scenario
say
for him.
it was like a distance kind of striking battle until Fremd was able to land, which
Right.
Cedriquez's questionable chin, right? Because I mean,
Right.
really the first time Fremd landed clean, so Dumas was in trouble for pretty much from there on out, just both in the round
Probably
and the
doesn't
fight.
get cracked a lot of his camp, small camp. You know what I mean? Doesn't face a lot of killers. Like they brought that up on the broadcast.
For sure. So I gave round one to Fremd. Essentially, Dumas started off hot, but I mean, by the end of the round, Fremd was in full control. He hurt Dumas. He took him down. At the end of the round, he was really kind of widening that gap, really kind of getting off on him. I thought Fremd kind of came back to win round one, if you will.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I thought the first minute Dumas looked so good on the feet, and then the minute he got tagged, the whole fight shifted. The whole rest of the round was in favor of Fremd. But not only that, man, he was able to get so much grappling work off that it really like sapped the cardio out of Dumas. Where like, kind of changed the fight, and also cracking him probably put him on like a different plane.
Well, like, bro, you can't be skinny and have bad cardio. Like, that's just like a bad.
Also a
like,
great point. Like, you can't look like you don't cut weight and then get tired. You just can't do that.
Especially against a guy who clearly cuts.
Bro, did he not have all of the attributes of a guy that you think is just undisciplined?
Yeah.
Like
well,
everything he
like
did seemed to lack discipline.
This morning, he was like going live on Instagram, smoking a blunt, and just being like, I mean, yeah, Fremd clearly was like training extra hard because he knew his contract was on the line. Like that was his excuse. He was like, Fremd's contract was on the line, so he trained extra hard. It's like, guess what?
So what?
Everybody trains extra hard.
What,
like,
bro? That's like in the NFL.
Yeah.
If they're like, yeah, they won because they practiced harder. Like, bitch, you better practice way fucking harder then. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I'm not hearing
Like,
that as an excuse.
It was like a non-excuse excuse. Like he was saying, like, yeah, the guy worked harder than I did, but like the verbiage in which he was like getting that point across was saying like, oh, this fucking guy was out here working hard.
Yeah,
What
this
do you
guy's
want from me?
such a bitch working hard to fight me. Like, that's crazy. Like, is it crazy? Or is it
Like,
just being a
like-
professional fighter? Like, he does everything that you'd think is like, he's not going to be in the UFC. He is not a professional fighter.
Especially with the PR hit and like you're gonna have to give Dana a reason to keep you around if he's catching heat for having you signed. You know what I mean?
I know, granted,
Yeah.
Dana beating up small women, he's clearly a fan of him. You know, shout out his wife.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like part of the club.
bro. Also, I watched the entire episode of Power Slap after this event. I can't believe I did that. That's the most brutal shit I've ever seen. And the last 10 out of 12 posts on UFC's official account are Power Slap and not UFC. And that bugs the fuck out of me.
Yeah, and then Dana went on Pat McAfee and was talking about how like, oh yeah, the media is trying to crucify me, but they're really helping me. And it's like, it's delusional, which I guess you got to be a certain level of delusional if you're Dana White, like the level of belief. And he has made chicken salad out of chicken shit before. And he was saying like, oh, that whenever UFC came out, they were saying the same thing. It was too violent, blah, blah, blah. like Dana White needs to be a politician, man, because like this, he can put a spin on it.
This is
but
like a ship burning in the harbor. Like, I'm gonna go check it out because it's fucking terrible. No, and it's like I'll never probably see this again because it's so bad. Same with Power Slap. Like, I checked it out. It's exactly what I thought. It's a goddamn garage fire. Glad I got to go see that. Don't want to be around it anymore.
Well, you know what it reminds me of is like, you know, like the people that like hang themselves from meat hooks and shit.
Yeah.
It's just like a painful spectacle that's like probably not good for the people involved, and it's just like a freak show essentially. Like, yeah, like it's just like,
bro, and there's judges. It's a 10-9 must. Like, that doesn't even make sense. Like,
you know what it is? It's like, remember like in fourth grade, people play bloody knuckles. It's like bloody knuckles for grown men.
It's a pain tolerance endurance, and like you have to stand with like a thing where you hold it behind your back so your chest is out and your neck is just like loose. Like, bro, it's ridiculous.
They look like they're about to take a firing squad shot.
Yeah, it's absurd, dude. It's absurd.
Yeah. Get the train back on the tracks here. Friend ends up kind of getting calling it kind of reminiscent of the John Jones Cyril Gahn mounted guillotine. Once he got on top of
it, looked just like it, which was hilarious because Dumas shouted out John Jones before the fight, like, yeah, that Machida or that choke I had. Pretty much just saw John Jones do it to Machida and thought, I need to do that. Like
I just saw John Jones beat up his bitch and I had to do what I had to do. But,
right, like, cool, man. Well, guess what happened to you? You just got guillotined from the top, just like John Jones just did.
And so, friend, I mean, in just, the lack of bottom game, like, there was no butterflies, there was no hip escapes, there was no, even, like, old school just turning and giving your back to try to stand up. Like, he had like an open guard, but wasn't attempting subs. So it was like worst of both worlds. Like he was getting none of the lockdown, but also none of the like flexibility of having an open guard. Like it was like worst of both worlds. Like if you have an open guard, it's because you're either trying to like push him off you or you're trying to throw up a sub from bottom. If you have a closed guard, it's boring, but you're like mitigating the damage and mitigating the position advancements.
Exactly.
He did neither.
Yeah, it was essentially like Frim was like, okay, well, I'm going to stand over your leg. And he was like, okay, stand over my leg. Yep. Not going to sweep. Okay, I'm going to lock your head in. He was like, good. Lock my head in. Good. It was like, are you going to sweep that other leg? You going to do anything? You stand up? Nothing. Just nothing. Just no jiu-jitsu.
And so Frim gets the second round sub. I mean, good on him. You know, he did need that win. Like what Cedric said about him fighting for his career. I mean, not wrong. He was 0-2, I believe. So now if you're 1-2, that still doesn't necessarily guarantee you don't get cut. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with Frim. He's a big guy. His striking defense is pretty horrible. Everything else is kind of just okay. You know what I'm saying? He does have some power, obviously. And then Dumas, I don't know. It's tough because if Dumas fuck around and gets like a highlight reel first round KO in his next fight, he's probably safe right back where he started. You know what I mean? As far as like an exciting, not exciting as far as like his future prospects, but exciting as on like we'll put on a banger of a fight that'll like a casual fan will find entertaining. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the whole street guy gimmick. So I don't know, bro. Like I mean, obviously I'm down on Cedriquez, but I'm honestly like he's probably one first round knockout away from being right back in good graces. So we'll see. I'm like
that's true,
kind of my same.
I think all the holes in his game are too outstanding for bantamweights to not have a path to victory every time they fight him.
Well, middleweight.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, the argument.
Same thing. Like the holes in his game are just too many. I'm sorry. I was looking at the bandweight rankings because I noticed that they don't have a 14. Very weird. I know who 14 is, but he's not listed. Very weird.
I don't know. I pretty much have the same takeaway from this fight as I did from the Gravely Henry fight. Like I'm not really in on any of these guys. I'm not buying any stock, any prediction strike stock in either one of these guys.
This was one of the most inconsequential fights of the prelims. That being said, I say we keep it pushing to the next fight that is a little more consequential. One for one guy's career and two for the bantamweight division as a whole. I guess both guys' careers, but this was the best. This was the
best fight on the whole prelims, like both after watching it and leading up to it. Like for sure. Let's dive in. We got Rafael Assunção Plus 125 dog taking on Davy Grant, minus 145, bantamweight division. Sunset was 40 years old. Davy Grant was like 37, 38. So we got some old dogs here that have been around the block a couple times, more than a couple.
The beefy lean was Davy Grant here. Now, that being said, holy shit, did we get a fight.
This fight was awesome, and my butthole was about fucking this puckered whenever.
Submission of the year contender. Easy for me. Easy. Already got it written.
Ooh. Yeah, that's you know what? I didn't think about that in the moment, but as soon as you said it, it sounds like very obvious. Like, duh, like we get a rare submission and a comeback win
and
submission.
The stakes by which he got it, the timing at which he got it, like the whole, like the setting of the submission,
the violence of it.
Yeah, oh, dude, yeah. Let's get into it. So, as you said, Davy Grant, slight favorite here. A Sun Tzu, very old, used to be as high as rank 3 in bantamweight. So keep that in mind. Like, used to be elite, kind of fading. I think that's mostly why me and D-Mac were like, well, Davy Grant's kind of, middling on the rise guy. This guy's old. Now, granted, looked good against Victor Henry. I'm not going to say Sun Tzu didn't look good against Henry. And after seeing Henry tonight, I was a little more worried about that bet. And then once the fight started, Sun Tzu got that takedown about a minute in the first round, rode it for a minute and a half before Davy Grant got back to his feet. Now, while Grant had a strong second half to the round, I still think Sun Tzu had done enough to get it on my scorecard 10-9.
Oh, yeah, I'll be real. I didn't really struggle to score round one. I didn't find it all that close. I mean, Rafael got the takedown with the control time, and he landed, in my opinion, the biggest punch of the round.
Agreed.
Like, did the most damage. You're right. It was somewhat competitive. It wasn't a 10-8. It wasn't an ass whooping.
Right.
But Sun Tzu won the round for sure. And then round two was actually pretty snoozy. Round two kind of sucked.
That was
to
a
watch,
snoozy round. It was weird, wasn't it? Like a Sun Tzu, and it was because of Sun Tzu was just so sharp. Like, just wouldn't allow Davy Grant to find success and was mitigating any attacks while also getting off some good offense here and there.
You know, a round is boring whenever you have the word defense in your notes. I was like, because Davy Grant just kind of couldn't hit him or couldn't really defend.
Couldn't get to a position in which to inflict damage. Like, a Sun Tzu just kept him defending for almost the entire round. Now, granted, that being said, a Sun Tzu didn't do the most damage. He was just in advantageous positions.
Hardly any. Yeah, 2 takedowns, some clinch control. Pretty snoozy, but now, Grant
all that being said, too, easy round to score, right? Like 10-9 to Sun Tzu, no problem. So 2018 to Sun Tzu for both of us. The judges would agree, all three across. And we're Grant guys here.
It wasn't looking so hot for the Grant bet.
And round 3, a Sun Tzu came out and looked good for the first probably 80 seconds, and then got wobbled by Grant. Now Grant tried to ege himself here.
Well, hold on. We're missing a critical part of this. Start of the round, Davy Grant loses a point for a fence grab.
No, that happens after this.
Okay, all right, fair enough. But at one point in the round, Davy Grant does lose a point for a fence grab.
Well, because he's trying he wobbles the Sun Tzu. Is trying to wrestle him. A Sun Tzu ends up reversing and is about to suck Davy Grant to the ground. And Davy Grant grabs the fence and gets back on top. Well, the ref stops it immediately, takes the point from Grant, and then stands him up. Mark Smith, yeah.
Mark Smith, I believe.
And DC is like, why is he standing him up? Why is he standing him up? Well, because, as it's explained to us after the fight, which I didn't realize, Davy Grant was actually on top at the point at which Mark Smith stopped it, right? Because he had survived the takedown attempt because he pulled himself back on top. So Mark Smith was like, well, I'm not going to award a takedown. He didn't get it, but I'm not going to award him top position. That's advantageous. So neutral position. In the moment, I thought, damn, he needs to put him back on the ground. Afterward, in the review,
I'm fine with it. Yeah.
That being said, Davy Grant needed it to be standing because he's already down 2018.
Down 3 points at that time.
Down 2017. He knows even a 10-8 is not going to tie the round, so it doesn't matter. It's like a finish is all I can go for here. And he starts going balls to the wall.
Yeah, and credit to him because we hear that so often. Every time a guy's down 2 rounds to nothing, we hear the cliche, need a finish from your champ. And it's like, but like very rarely do we actually see somebody go for it. Usually guys either resign the fact that they're not getting the win or they're too gassed to really go for it, or the other guy's just that much better and there's a reason he's down 2 rounds. It's very rare that we see the guy that's down 2 rounds, 2.5, 3, if you include the point deduction, really just say, fuck it, I'm going to let my nuts hang.
Yeah.
That's what that's what we got here. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, because with like 45 seconds left, Asuncao is hurt, like just getting tagged, right? Because he's been hurt the whole round, and Grant kind of cheated to save himself from the one position Asuncao was going to win. Good on him, because that point was obviously worth it, as it turns out, because Asuncao gets in on a shot. Davy Grant goes over the top of him against the fence, which is kind of like desperation defense, right? Like, I'm just going to dive out of this. Well, Asuncao holds the leg, and Davy Grant kind of gets caught and realizes with his legs, you can see him like catch it and be like, oh, I have a triangle. Does the reverse triangle with his legs, pretty much chest to back reverse, gets on top of him and is just, in his own admission, squeezing as hard as he can. Asuncao is just trying to stay in the choke and stay alive and keep blood flow going and just pretty much ride it out, knowing that, like, I can't lose a decision. And he goes to sleep with 26 seconds left.
Yeah, and it was crazy. I mean, obviously my eyes untrained. I'm not a jiu-jitsu guy, but like, it almost seemed like the MMA gods just like put Asuncao right into the position. Like when they hit the ground, like what I'm getting at is like Davy Grant really didn't do any adjusting, or you never really saw him like cinch it in. Like they kind of just landed in the position.
Well, Asuncao was in on that.
It
Asuncao was in on that high crotch, right? And Grant just pretty much threw his leg over the arm when he tried to dive, and so when his leg kicked back under, it was already wrapped over his other leg, and he was like, holy shit, it's right here, and just like literally just had to squeeze his legs. Like you said, like it's the luckiest dive into a choke I've ever seen. Like, you couldn't plan that, because if you tried to plan it, you'd pull him too much and you'd miss the position.
Yeah, like there was no setup, I guess is what I'm getting at. Like they just kind of they went from not being in that position to straight into the submission, which is wild. Like
which, when you're going to lose a fight on my card 30-26 and you pull a submission out of a hat with fucking under 30 seconds to go against a really good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner and a vet, that's my submission of the year, in a rare submission, no less.
Super rare. And I honestly think Mark Smith, it took him like a half a beat to even realize there was like a reverse triangle happening.
It was Tognoni. It's my mistake, because I remember him hitting the hand 3 times. I mean, like, oh, he's out. On the third hit, like, bro, did the second dead hand hit not tell you he was out?
I think for a second there, he was hitting Grant's hand. I think there was such like a mess, a tangle web of bodies. I think Grant's hand was still alive. He's like, all right. He goes like, oh, fuck, like, that's the wrong hand.
He's like, checked it again. I was like, oh, he's fucking asleep.
Yeah, he was asleep for a minute. Yeah, so, I mean, awesome. It was entertaining. We got a spectacular finish. We get a performance of the night bonus for Grant, obviously well deserved there. And then we get a retirement from Asuncao, which guys retire at the same time. Like, we don't need to see Asuncao get Frankie Edgar.
And you know what I mean? To retire in. Like, he dominated until he just barely got caught. Like, he can go out and say to the end of his days, like, man, even my last fight, like, I was dominating, I just got caught, but like, that's when I knew it was time to hang it up. Like, that sounds better than Frankie Edgar getting starched 3 times in a row, being like, yeah, I just didn't have what it took, you know, I just kept taking fights and kept getting KO'd. Like, that's a way worse story.
Yeah, and you love to see when a guy, like, clearly he's been smart enough with his money to where he's not like just taking fights and getting beat up for cash. Like, I don't know. I think Asuncao went out about as gracefully as, you know, he got sounded. It's not like he was a bloody mess. Like, he didn't get the shit kicked out of him. Like, he performed really well. Like, we're going to remember him still with some level of, like, respect. And, like, we're not going to remember him, like, going out sad, as they say.
Also, before we push this featured prelim, I just want to bring something up I thought was super, super interesting. I listened to a podcast with Chael recently. Maybe Flagrant. I can't remember what podcast it was. It was just after the John Jones fight.
Went on Flagrant.
He talks about how much he actually got paid back in the day. Like, sponsorships and everything included, like, all monies. He said when he fought Anderson Silva, like, his total income on that fight was $8.1 million. And he said that the contracts the UFC gives is not what they pay.
Yeah, and it's so hard to know what to do with that information.
Because it's Chael.
I watched a lot of that. It was Chael, and I got every story he would tell in that whole podcast. It was a great podcast.
Embellished. Very embellished.
And you can tell he was, like, trying to, like,
stun it hard.
We've all been there. We've all been in a room full of people we're trying to impress and, like, tell our, like, you know what I mean?
Like Akash was, like, eating into it, too. So, like, he was, like, selling it harder because Akash was kind of sold.
awesome. Like, I would love to have been in that room. Like, that was fucking. It was a great podcast.
He might have sold me in the room. Like, he's charismatic, and when he's telling me that, like, to your face and not breaking character, it'd be hard.
Vote JLP for sure. But. And then I've seen some, like, Twitter accountants, like, going back and kind of disputing it with some level of evidence. I mean, like I said, we don't know what these guys get paid. I mean, and everybody always says, oh, in the other sports you do. In baseball and basketball you do. Football does bullshit with the payouts and how much guys actually make.
Yeah, like Tyreek Hill just got a signing bonus. He got his salary of this year converted to a signing bonus, so he just got $24 million off the rip this year. And I don't know.
Google Tyreek Hill's 2023 salary. It's going to say $1 million.
Right. And exactly. So, yeah. But it's like, it's $25 million.
So, I don't know. I kind of like every reason you have to believe Chael, you have a reason not to believe him. I do think he got paid a lot of fucking money. I mean,
even
I think Chael's
even if it was $5 million, guy. You know what I'm saying? Even if it was 60%, 63% of what he had originally said, I think that's probably fair. So even if it's $5 million. Like, there's the story of DC, whenever he fought John Jones the first time, being a guy that the UFC, like, didn't even really care about, signed to fight for, like, 150 or 200 plus his sponsors, whatever it was worth, and they gave him $1 million out of the fight because they were like, you put on such a good performance, and you're like, thank you. Like, I think that happens a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, Kevin Holland's another good example of a guy that I think is getting very well taken care of outside of his fight contracts, or else he wouldn't be the way he is.
And I don't know the exact legality or how sketch they get with it, but it sounds like there's a scenario in which it helps you in the tax situation too.
Yeah, like it sounds like they give them financial gifts rather than like pay.
Like that ain't on your 1099 or you know.
Yeah, it's not a 30. It's not a 34% tax. It's like an 18%. Like they save them taxes, and they save themselves taxes as people because they give charitable donations.
And shout out to Nevada no state tax, but yeah, I mean, that is a very interesting conversation to have when it comes to fighter pay because we all want to see these guys get paid more.
I just thought that was really interesting, and I thought I should bring that up before we get this breakdown over with because the prelims aren't worth much, so let's go ahead and push this featured, and we'll get on to that main card that matters. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Up next, we got the debut of Carl Williams taking on Lukas Brzeski. And both it's an interesting matchup because we got like two heavyweights that aren't the biggest heavyweights. No, they both ended up weighing in over 240. During like the broadcast was in the lead up talking about these guys weigh 230. I think Williams
they're athletically sized.
Williams has fought at 205 in the past, so they were kind of selling us as these undersized heavyweights. But then they both weighed in it. I mean, about the same as John Jones, right? I mean, give or take.
I mean, if you weigh, Aspinall's 243, Stipe is 250, like,
so,
you know,
and normal size
240 to 250, like, I am personally that weight. If you told me, like, you got to fight a guy that's 245, I'd be like, okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, that weight, that 10 pounds doesn't even matter at that range.
No, for sure. And Carl Williams, you know, he has he trains like apparently him and Cody Durden were on the same like high school wrestling team. Like Durden posted like a picture. I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, I'm not even a big like Durden fan, but
I bet their team was some dogs.
Yeah, seriously. What a room. And then taking on Lukas Brzeski, he's Polish, so you got to assume he hits hard as fuck. That's what
true.
I do. I see the red and white flag, and I'm like, oh, this guy's gonna have some pack and punch. But yeah, man. I mean, I'll be real. I didn't know a ton about either of these guys coming into it. I had heard kind of the people were putting respect on Carl Williams' name coming into this one, both from the money line perspective, Vegas was, and also just like the way I saw a couple tweets, heard a couple fighters like mentioning his name. Nobody really had a bad thing to say. Everybody said was kind of like looking forward to this guy's debut. So I don't know. We both bet Williams. We kind of just trusted the hype, if you will. And I gotta say, you saw why people are excited about this guy. Like you saw.
I will agree, but I will also disagree with certain points. Like I think he could have gotten Turkalj out of there. I think that he was way too safe in the way he fought. Because the only questionable round, I think they're all obviously Williams rounds. It's how did you score round 2? And then beyond that, do you think he could have gotten him out of there in round 2?
Well, because scoring kind of matters. And honestly, I'll be real. My round 3 is my variance. So maybe we saw it differently. But Williams, I mean, he was round two. I mean, round one, he got the 2 takedowns. I mean, it was a crazy round, very high pace. And that would be relevant because pretty much after the first round, both men were some level of gassed. I gave round one 10-9 Williams, but I'm just saying, like, both men expended a lot of energy in round one, especially for heavyweights.
No doubt. And it's probably the only reason that Williams doesn't push harder to get a finish, right?
Yes.
Because
that's why it's so relevant.
The pace of their fight was so crazy that, like, yeah, I could see. I mean, they were both tired. Like, so 10-9 Williams, second round, he lands that low blow and they separate. After Williams drops him to start the round and is doing crazy damage, Bresky somehow survives, which was just unbelievable to me. Gets that low blow, and Williams puts his hands on his knees like he's like tired. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was a wild visual.
I was like, oh damn, the guy that just got beat up for 3 minutes might actually have more in the gas tank and might actually come back and finish this fight.
Yeah. It had me thinking that too. Now, granted, round two, yeah, he got the knockdown. Well, I think he was more like he wobbled him and then made the takedown easy. I don't think it was officially a knockdown, but for all intents and purposes. And then he got two more takedowns after that. He had some solid ground and pound. I went 10-9. Just maybe it was a visual because both men were so gassed and it was so sloppy. Even though Williams did a lot, it just didn't look good. Like, I don't know.
I went 10-8, and it was based on this one simple question I asked myself, which was, what did Turkalj do this round? I mean,
Bresky. Turkalj fights.
I'm sorry. Bresky. Yeah, they have weird names. What did Bresky do this round? I mean, nothing, man.
It's crazy. I can copy and paste your notes for round two and use them for my round three. I thought Bresky did even less in round three. Like, I didn't really want
I thought he was done. I just thought Bresky was done. Like, I'll be honest. I think post the point that he gets rocked and recovers and survives, it's survival. He does nothing after that to make any impact in the fight.
So I gave my 10-8 in round three as opposed to round two.
Oh, okay.
Because in round three, I could argue that should have been stopped. Like, there was moments where Bresky was not intelligently defending. Now, it wasn't because of damage. It was like he was like too gassed to defend. But regardless, and like the same question you asked, what did Bresky do? I thought Bresky did more in round two than he did in round three. Like, he did actually nothing in round three. It wasn't the most violent, brutal 10-8 you've ever seen, but it was just like the margin was wide because one side wasn't doing anything. It was like actually one-sided. And could have been stopped.
I would agree with that. Sorry, I'm trying to find the scorecards for this fight just because UFC didn't upload them properly, so...
No, you're good. Because I'm curious, too, because there were two judges did give a 10-8. We have two judges going 30-26, but now that we disagree, I thought I knew which round it was, but now I'm curious, I'm curious which round got the...
Man, I don't think the right scorecards got uploaded. I think everyone can't see them. Let me see. That's very interesting because like they just have a Sunsao twice on there. They uploaded their card twice.
Yeah, no worries.
Fight. And then after this, we'll obviously wrap up the episode. But
what website do you usually find those cards on?
Usually on UFC.com.
Oh, okay.
But they uploaded them incorrectly on their official website because they're dumb.
I'm trying to see if they have it on Tapology or anything like that. I don't think so.
Yeah, I'll just thought it should be it. UFC Fight Night. I guess I should type Williams versus Bresky. Because the only reason I won't even spend time to look it up is because I'm just so interested as to. Here we go. So actually, you're right. The two judges that do give 10-8s do give it in the third. I'm the only guy that gives a 10-8 second. I thought I was. I mean, that's crazy, man. I'm very surprised.
Like I said, I think Bresky looked worse in three. It's not that Williams, to your credit, I thought Williams looked better in two than he looked in three. Like, Williams' performance was better in round 2, but Brisky did even less in round 3. Like, I think Brisky looked so bad in round 3 that, like, I think that's what me and those judges saw. Like, both men looked better in 2, including Brisky.
That might be fair. And I might have seen it, I might have just been so down on Bresky in the second round that maybe I leaned that way, from the damage and like I don't know. Either way, I thought 30-26 was a very easy way to come out. I thought very clear winner. And all that being said, that does wrap up the prelims. And thank you to everyone that stuck with us through the prelims. I know we only spent an hour on 7 fights. Doesn't seem like a lot. Talked about a lot of stuff. However, the main card, you cannot miss. Cannot miss. So if you're watching this right now, or if you're watching it later, you got to go check out this main card video we're about to start.
Yeah, check it out. We'll be right back with that main card of UFC Fight Night, Dvalishvili versus Yan. Can't wait to talk about it.
Yes, sir. See you guys in a minute.